Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video where I have the new Hourglass Luminous edit to try out with you today. I also have quite a lot of other Hourglass palettes and this is only about half of those that are on my desk right now, so that we can see if there are any very similar shades in the previously existing palettes that you might already own. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so this is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting palette in the shade Luminous Edit. It is available exclusively on the Sephora UK website and it will set you back £68 for the 3 shades within the edit. You get 3.3 grams of the powder, 2.8 grams of the blush and 3 grams of the strobe powder. There are no brand new shades for this palette. All 3 of these shades have been previously available and all 3 of them are available as permanent singles in Hourglass's line. We have an ambient lighting powder in the shade Luminous Light. This is a champagne pearl powder that creates a soft incandescent candlelight glow day or night. An ambient lighting blush in the shade Luminous Flush, which is a champagne rose blush fused with luminous light to evoke a candlelit shimmer. And then we have an ambient strobe lighting powder in the shade Iridescent Strobe Light. This is an illuminating pink powder imparting a soft highlight. So as I said, all 3 of these shades are available as single permanent products from Hourglass, but also Luminous Flush was in the original ambient lighting edit, which is like the only one that I don't own, and the Iridescent Strobe Light was in the Ghost palette, which I also don't own. So you might get a hint as to why I felt the need to pick this little trio up, given that I don't actually own any palettes containing any of these shades. I don't own the original ambient lighting edit somehow. I think it was just before my makeup journey started, and I never purchased the single Luminous Flush shade. And I also don't own the Ghost palette because I think the year that the Ghost palette came out, I think the Ghost had a lot of repeat shades and I picked up just the 4-pan instead of the 6-pan that year. So for me, this was worth adding to my collection for a few reasons. One, I don't own the blush. I don't have a palette with any of these shades in it. Also, the Luminous Light shade of ambient lighting powder is my favorite all-time shade of this powder from Hourglass, and owning it for a while now, I know it's like the most luminous, or it's certainly one of the most beautifully luminous shades of these powders. They do vary. Some of them aren't very luminous at all. This one is very, very luminous and actually can be used as a highlighter. So immediately when I read the shades in this palette, and I saw also that the strobe powder was not a metallic, it was their ambient strobe, which again is softer, less intense, I knew that I would love all 3 shades in here. And I also thought this will make a beautiful, just swirl together blush, which I did show when I made my reel of this Hourglass palette that almost had my whole Instagram deleted. For some reason best known to Instagram's algorithm. But I did actually swirl all 3 shades together and that made a delightful, gorgeously glowy blush. So today I'm going to be trying this both ways. I'm going to use the powders separately and then I'm going to swirl them together and see the different effects that we can get with this palette. One more thing to mention before we dive into the demo of this little palette is when I first posted that this had launched, that this was a brand new palette exclusive to Sephora UK from Hourglass, I had a lot of messages from my American friends. A lot of Americans telling me, no, you're wrong, this is not new, we've had this, I own this already, it's not new, there's nothing new, this is not an exclusive, I purchased this years ago. So I had a lot of messages of this nature and comments of this nature from my American friends. So just to clarify, I am of course UK based, so when I talk about availability or something launching or something being available or something new, I am talking about in the UK market, because that is the only market that I am familiar with. I don't know what was previously available, if it was only available in the US. I'm not familiar with it. So apologies if you were confused or outraged by me calling this new. This is new brand new, never been here before, but in the UK, which is where I live. So hopefully that clears that up. I do get a lot of this confusion. Sometimes I'll post, you know, just launched and a link to where something has launched in the UK, and I will get a lot of people saying it's not available, it's not on the website, I can't see it. And again, what that means is it's launched on the UK site, and that's where I've linked, but because you're in another country, when you click the link, it takes you to your country's website most of the time, and then you can't find it because it hasn't launched there. So that is what's happening. If that happens, please remember I am UK based, and unless I state, you know, available in the US or available in another country, I do mean here where I live. Sorry for any confusion to my American friends that may cause, because I know I have a lot of American followers, and I think sometimes it gets a little forgotten that we live in two completely different countries with different availabilities and different shops available to us. So just a reminder, that's what I mean if it seems confusing. But we really haven't had very many of these 3 pans. I have seen people talking about these being available at Nordstrom. I think it's like Nordstrom do a sale quite frequently where they have exclusive products, and Hourglass quite often has a 3 pan available in Nordstrom. I feel like a lot of those have a bronzer, blush and highlighter, which I probably would have preferred given the choice. We haven't historically got a lot of those little trios from Hourglass. I'm hoping we're going to get more of these, because I think they are, you know, a much lower price point, and for some people they're just a bit more travel friendly, a bit more storage friendly, smaller, less daunting and far less expensive. So I hope that we will get some more trios, and I know a lot of us are hoping we will get some more quads like the Dream Edit that most of us were never able to get our hands on. Okay, but enough chattering on, let's jump into the demo. Come closer, little children. Ooh, ah, boop, the snoot. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do first of all on this side of my face is I'm going to go in with the Iridescent Strobe, which is this powder. I mean, when you swatch these together, the luminous light is so glowy and the iridescent strobe is so subtle for a highlighter that they do look essentially the same amount of glow. This is the strobe powder and this is luminous light. Luminous light is very good for my skin tone, my winter skin tone. It's not one that sort of darkens my foundation, and it's not one that sort of looks a bit too bright, which the strobe light is definitely the brighter of the two, which is good as it is, you know, the highlighter. But the great thing about this is that both of these powders can be used as a highlighter, because you know I don't use a lot of powder, so both of these can be used for me as a highlighter or mixed with the blush, which I'm also excited to try. So I'm using Sonia G's collaboration with Tissue, and I'm going to use the strobe powder as a highlighter on this side. As you can see, it's really a subtle highlighter, which I love. I don't sort of like the strobe, the metallic strobe formula as much from Hourglass. It's just a little too much for me, but this one is perfect. Very pretty, soft candlelit glow, exactly as described. No cast when looking forward, it just melts into the skin, which I love. Next, I'm going to go into this Luminous Flush blush, and I'm using my Sonia G Classic Cheek. The beautiful thing about these ambient lighting blushes is they are so soft and pretty, but so easy to build, and you really can build as much as you would like. I would still say this palette in particular would be best suited up to a sort of tan skin tone. I think you can build these powders, and because, you know, they are so glowy, obviously the powder would be, obviously luminous light as a setting powder or a finishing powder would be too light for anyone with more of a medium to tan skin tone. It's going to lighten and maybe leave a cast on you, but you can use both of these powders as highlighters. So it probably is going to work from a fair skin tone up to a tan in some way if you want to use the finishing powder as all over the face. I would say a light medium to medium, and you'd be able to use all three powders as like their intended purpose. So I only have the Rare Beauty contour on before this palette. So this is the highlighter and the blush. And then I'm going to take the Luminous Light powder, which is the slightly deeper of the two, and my Sonia buffer brush, and I'm just going to lightly buff that over what we've done there. That's just how I sort of use that powder. I'm also going to buff around my bronzer on my forehead and just everywhere else. And that's just given us a little bit of extra glow, and it has slightly softened the blush. So I'm going to go back and brighten that blush back up with that really beautiful glow now to the skin. So this is how we're looking using all three powders kind of individually as they're described. Really pretty, quite soft, natural, gorgeous glow, really pretty. So now what I'm going to do is take the larger brush from Sonia's collaboration with Tissue, and I'm going to just do this and get a bit of a 3-in-1 glowy blush. So this is going to slightly lighten the blush because of course the powders are lighter than the blush, so we're going to get a more subtle amount of colour but a much more of a glow and a quicker sort of result. So you can see we've got a really gorgeous glowing cheek, but the blush is definitely a little more subtle, so even better for someone with really fair skin tone. You can use it in this way and it's really going to be very easy to use and control without it being too scary. And so this is the side with everything mixed together and applied in one versus everything being applied separately. So I think you can see the blush is kind of a bit more built up on this side, but this side I feel like we've got a much prettier diffused glow, and everything, just like my whole cheek looks glowy, as opposed to there being a more precise or a more sort of strategic glow. I think I like this side better. I think I might just want to, you know, mix them all together and then maybe go and add the blush to build it up. But I love the effect that it gives and that really subtle sort of highlight, as opposed to there being highlight placed. It's just the whole cheek is glowing, which I really love. Oh, hair on my eye. Great. Gorgeous. I love the shade of that blush as well. It's not too pink. You know, I don't love pink when it, well, really when it comes to any makeup, but especially pink, like very pink blush. This is definitely a true rose. God, I thought I'd stab my nail in it then for a second. If anything, it maybe leans a little coral, but really beautiful. I think I heard my friend Tanya say that this was her favorite Hourglass blush shade, and I knew she wouldn't steer me wrong. So pretty. I love it. I'm so happy with this trio. I think I'll use it more as well than the 6 pans, just because they are sort of a bit out of sight, out of mind, because they can't go in my everyday blush drawer because they are so big. They do get a little forgotten about. So pretty. I'm really happy with this. I like it more than I thought I was going to. So I'm going to swatch the powders now. So this is this year's powders. We have Luminous Light and the Iridescent Strobe Light. Swatch that next to Soft Light from the Evil Eye palette. This is Soft Light from Evil Eye. You can barely see that one. No close finishing powders in the Lotus Flower palette. I also want to swatch the highlighter just so you can kind of compare. These in this new palette are much more subtle. You can see how much more glowy that one is than either of the powders in this new palette. And then we had 2 powders in Dragon and a highlighter. Again, the highlighter is much glowier than any of the two powders in this new palette, and the powders are more matte than these finishing powder and the highlighter in this new palette. Okay, here we have the new blush in this new palette. I'm actually going to go with the second part of that blush just to make sure we can see clearly the shade in comparison, because it is softer. So I have the Golden Rose edit. This makes a lot of sense for me to swatch these blushes. So I'd say this new blush is almost like if you mix the two from the Golden Rose edit together. Let me just do that a little as well as I can. Not quite, but very close. What I'm noticing is that the Luminous Flush blush in this new palette versus these two swirled together is this one definitely looks more luminous in comparison to all of those shades from the Golden Rose edit, but certainly very similar in shade. There's nothing similar in my Oldest Unlocked palette. The Sculpture palette, this shade is going to be much brighter, but it might help you compare. Actually more similar than I thought, but definitely brighter. Rose Flush from this trio that we got, was it last year? That is similar, but a little more mauvey toned. Let's have a look at the Leopard palette. Just as a reminder that I always keep my palettes, my colour stories in their original packaging. So Leopard is Leopard colour story. So we've got one much lighter shimmery shade in there and one much deeper, more red. Those off. I'm doing these on my hand, by the way, because it's much easier for me to see what I'm doing as I'm swatching than it is on my arm, which I can never really see if I'm in focus or not. Tiger palette, let's have a look at this shade. I don't think it's going to be similar, but you just never know. That one's much more glowy, much more of a shimmery finish. Jellyfish, let's try this little number, which I think will be pinker. Yes, pinker and a bit more glowy. Evil Eye blush, I don't think this is anything in here is similar at all. No, much more of a sort of fuchsia and more matte. Elephant, again, I don't think this is going to be similar, but let's try. Yeah, more sheeny and much more coral. I need to use that. I've forgotten that shade existed. And finally, we have the Dragon palette. This shade, no, this is going to be much peachier. Yes, much peachier. And again, more of a sheen, more glowy. So I hope that was a little helpful if you own a lot of Hourglass palettes and you're trying to see if there's anything similar. Certainly the other rose blushes were the closest. So this is the diffused rose edit and the rose flush blush, and also in the golden rose edit, if you mix the two blushes in there together, you'll get quite a similar shade, if not a similar finish. So there are definitely similar blushes out there, and hopefully that will help you decide whether you need this, whether it's going to offer you anything that you don't already have. I'm really happy with this. This is not really a purchase just for review purposes for me. I really was interested in this little palette. One, because I don't own this blush, and the more blushes you have from Hourglass really is helpful when it comes to comparisons with all of these palettes and things like that. But I was really interested in the blush. It looked really pretty, and I know that I love Luminous Light as a more subtle highlighter, and then the addition of the more subtle strobe highlighting powder that again I somehow miraculously don't already own was enough to pique my interest enough for me to give this a go, and I'm really happy I did. I think it looks beautiful. I think it offers something a little more versatile, given that I can mix everything together or use bits here and there together or use the whole palette and end up with a slightly different effect. I'm obsessed. This side with everything mixed together looks stunning. That's what I really like to see from Hourglass. As they've taken away their strobe strobe blush, which is my favorite and more glowy than their ambient lighting blush. This is effectively giving us back the strobe blushes, because we've got a blush next to a strobe powder and it can very easily be mixed together until you end up with a strobe blush. So I'm really excited. This is something I've really been missing and wanting Hourglass to give us back, those strobe blushes or something similar, and this is allowing me to create my own strobe blush. So I'm very happy with this because I think it looks stunning and it's quick and easy without having to go in with blush and highlighter separately. I've got a gorgeous, more sort of diffused effect, but super glowy. I just tracked my little pinky in the package. I wish they would release like a whole range of these type of palettes, all different shades for all different skin tones at once, rather than just one here and there that obviously isn't going to work for everybody and isn't necessarily going to be something that's different to everybody. I know lots of us are crying out for more neutral or peachy blushes from Hourglass. We're still very short on those. We did get some in our 6 pans this year, which was fantastic. This, you know, peachy shade, and there was a more neutral shade, so we're getting there. But I would love to see some single blushes from Hourglass that are more peachy, that are more neutral, because there still really is a gap in their collection with that, and we also still need, as ever, much more deeper skin options. So please, as always, let me know all of your thoughts on this little trio palette. If you're in the US and you already picked this up, how do you like it? Do you still use it? Does it stand out in your Hourglass collection? If you are here in the UK or somewhere else where this has just launched, please let me know. Are you picking it up? Did you get it already? How are you liking it? Let me know all of your thoughts, please, in the comment section down below. But I hope you enjoyed this video and it helped you if you are considering picking up this latest palette from Hourglass. But thank you so much for joining me today. I'd love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye, 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 bye.